It occurs to me that over the past year, something a bit strange has been happening. Now, I am no stranger to the fact that I can be argumentative and boisterous and all that jazz, but something I have noticed is when someone wants to insult me or talk down to me, the common retaliation by them is something along the lines of, "You'll understand when you're older." And it happens so much, it genuinely makes me wonder, do people not realize I am in my 30s? Like, at all. Yes, as of this video going live, I am 32. Older than all but a select handful of you guys, because my target demographic is 18 to 34-year-olds. And yes, all of y'all are men, no matter how hard I try to gear my content toward women and non-binary folks. Because I think YouTube just hates me or something. It actually confounds me a little bit because if you do think that I'm a teenager for some reason, A, where do you think I had the time to make well over 500 videos in 2 years? And 2, why the hell are you even here, you freak? I'm kidding, it was a joke. I still need your viewership, so don't you dare click out of the video. But that being said, given just how often this kind of thing seems to happen to me, I did consider getting a second opinion. I have some friends who are not afraid to be brutally honest with me, and when I asked them to give an honest answer of what they think my mental age actually is, oh, there is nothing more humbling than the answers they happened to come up with, because they were low. Maybe that is just what I get for wavering under the perpetual delusion that I could somehow become famous by playing video games on the internet instead of getting a real job. And yes, I am aware the AI training thing is going to be a real job, but even that doesn't exactly feel like one. You know, I went back and rewatched the videos that I made when I turned 30 and 31 respectively. In those two videos, the things I focused on most were juxtapositions between the number of milestones I'd racked up versus the amount of time that I have been alive. A gamification of reality that seems pretty on brand for the kind of channel this happens to be. Yet a more pragmatic me would point out that it isn't enough to be accomplished in order to feel like an adult. It's like, in order to really feel like an adult, you have to feel as though you have a space at the table with other adults, which is easier said than done, especially in my case. When I look at other people and they happen to be really good at something, it could be anything really, I always marvel at the degree of experience and familiarity that allows them to partake in those tasks without really giving those tasks a second thought. And in doing so, I often consider the fact that the person doing those tasks has refined their skill set over years or even decades. It's interesting because when you think of a person who is in a supervisory position or is the de facto expert on a given thing, it is usually someone who is middle-aged or even older. I find myself most often comparing myself to these people, but worse than that, assuming that people younger than even me, so people in their early to mid-20s, are supposed to be held to that standard in order to be considered an adult at all, leading to some of the worst inferiority complexes imaginable and a lot of time spent in therapy. I wish I was kidding about that. But it's like, I should be telling myself more often that I actually am good at more than I give myself credit for. I know how to do my taxes and my insurance. I know how to manage what little money I happen to come by. I can do my own laundry while there are adults who don't even know how to do that. I'm a better cook than I was in my 20s, though that still isn't saying much. I grocery shop for myself, handle most of my medical stuff, and I know my way around most computers. These are all important things to know when you are someone in your 30s, nor are those the only skills that I know. It has taken a few years, but I have gotten a lot better at Photoshop and Premiere. I still know how to use AutoCAD, Revit, and SketchUp, so that's something. Hell, I understand AI enough to have cloned my own voice, and my proficiency with writing puts a lot of people's to shame, although learning that more people are genuinely illiterate than I originally thought certainly tips that particular scale. And I think, for the longest time, I undersold a lot of this stuff. Felt like it didn't matter, and that lack of mattering made me feel less than an adult. I wonder if that has more to do with other people's priorities than my own. It's like other people see adulthood as being about what you've earned, whether that is money, a home of your own, or starting a family, because heaven knows a lot of adults act like they own their children. And because those things have literally never mattered to me one bit, and I spend my free time playing video games on the internet, it does lead people to accusing me of not growing the fuck up. And I don't know. Are they right? Are they wrong? We're gonna pivot a bit and talk about the psychology of aging under what is known as the Erikson model. This is something I learned from Intro to Psych over a decade ago, though it finally has a bit of relevance to it. It is this idea that life is divided into 8 stages, 5 of which comprise the first 18 years of your life, and then 2 between 18 and 65, and the final stage being everything after 65. Yet there is a caveat in this model wherein if you live long enough for your circumstances to take a turn, think dementia or the like, then toward the end of your life, you will flip right back around to stage 1. So when I look at my own life and how it aligns with this model, what stage do I happen to be on? I feel like I lived out the 6th stage during my 20s and moved into the 7th stage around the time I was 27. That was during the event which shall not be named, and it did result in me starting to think about the things that would hopefully outlive me. And by the time I hit 30, after the heart attack, I was asking myself quite genuinely whether it was all right to have been me, whether I could be happy with the life I had lived up to that point, and if I would have no regrets when it actually came my time to pass on. Again, 30 was a whole 2 years ago. It leads me to wonder if, during those past 2 years, my subconscious mind has flipped around, putting itself back into one of the first 5 stages of life, and causing me to feel as if I am just no different than who I happen to be half a lifetime ago. And if I do somehow make it to 60, which is a definite if, would that mean that I have actually lived 2 distinct lifetimes? How would that even work? But on the other hand, there is a bit of a problem with the Erikson model. Life expectancy at the start of the Common Era was around 35 years. It wasn't until the late 1700s that the typical life expectancy averaged above 40. So the idea that 99% of people never made it past the 6th stage of life prior to the Industrial Revolution does feel a tad disingenuous. We have to take into account the notion that people, when faced with very intensive lives, grow up way too fast and are forced to endure all 8 stages of life much faster than they ever expected they would, leading to a complete wraparound in their development and ending up at what is essentially a reboot of their own adolescence. Which is why it isn't any wonder that my greatest pleasure in life is playing video games on the internet. Okay, enough of that joke. We've run it into the ground at this point. Actually, I want to talk about something a little different at this point, and it's something that has occupied my mind a lot more recently. This is going to be some metaphysical shit, so take it with a grain of salt. In my personal time, so time that's not spent slaving over video editing, I have been having these recurring daydreams, I guess you can say, of falling into a deep sleep or a hypnotic trance and waking up like 40 to 50 years in the future. But like, in these daydreams, there is a kind of cyclical nature to them, where my body and my mind do not age at all during those 40 to 50 years. So it's like falling asleep and just being teleported to the year 2060 or 2070 and still being in my 30s rather than being 70 or 80. And upon waking up, there is this semblance of culture shock where I would be so out of my own element that I would fundamentally need a caretaker to rehabilitate me into that particular society, whatever that may be. I wasn't really sure where my subconscious was going with all this, but then it hit me a few weeks ago in therapy. With the world having been batshit insane for hands down the longest time, there is a part of me that is telling myself, if we get to a point where all of this comes to pass, where all the bullshit kind of just sorts itself out, and there is just a period of societal decompressing, it is in that moment that I am probably going to just unravel. Like, that'll be the point where I say, I am done with everything. I no longer want to be an adult, and you might as well put me in a home. I just feel like I've burned the candle at both ends for so damn long that I've kind of backed myself into a corner. I can take care of myself up to a point, but once I am past that point, I genuinely don't know if I will be able to anymore. And I will need to be wholly dependent upon others just for my own survival. So, as I sit here at 32 years old, what exactly is my impression of being 32? I suppose it is the same as being 16, but twice over. And maybe if I do make it to 48, that will be 16, but thrice over. Maybe, just maybe, I am never going to truly grow up. And maybe, just maybe, there's really no point to even doing so. Oh my gosh, I thought birthdays were supposed to be a day of celebration, and yet every single year I do this shit. Am I ever gonna have a year where I'm just like birthday, happy, yada yada? I don't know. But hey, I've said all I can really think to say. For what it's worth, I will continue to be here, continue to make videos, and if I make it to 33, you will see yet another one of these a year from now. So thank you very much for watching. Feel free to leave a like or comment, and I'll be seeing y'all in the next videos.